and welcome to the Manager Tools Podcast for Tuesday, May 9th, 2005. Hi, this is Michael Lozan, and on behalf of my partner Mark Horstman and I, welcome to Manager Tools. Now, if you're a manager, don't think for a moment that someone else is managing your career. Those days are long gone. You are managing your career. What you do, not only in job skills, but also in what we call transition skills, will be the primary determinant of your career success. You're not going to have the richest, most rewarding series of roles and opportunities by allowing someone in HR to know enough about you to get where you want to be, or where you need to be. And succession planning won't save you either. And one of the most important of the transition skills is building and maintaining your network. Most people are terrible at it. We know this because they have no network. Now, notice that we did not say that the skill was networking. That term conjures up smoozing and cocktail parties, and too many people don't like it. So we're not suggesting you do that. We're suggesting you build and maintain your network. And it only takes 3 simple skills. And today, we're going to walk through them. Stay tuned. Have we talked about networking before on the show or no?
I went back and looked. I thought for sure we had, but we have not.
Yeah, that's an important piece of people's career.
And I think it's important that we make the distinction between building and maintaining the network and networking, because almost nobody except me, likes networking.
You just the term networking itself is
people think of
negatively.
Networking as schmoozing and going cocktail parties and chatting people up and exchanging business cards and going to networking events the chamber puts on, and they hate it. And I understand why. This show is not about networking. We really couldn't care less about the schmoozing aspect of networking. The issue...
Have you ever gone to one of these so-called networking events? Have you ever been to one of those?
Yeah, I have.
How'd you like it?
I hated it. First of all, it was a bunch of small businesses looking to glom onto big businesses that had contracts that the small businesses could satisfy. It was totally about what the person who was approaching the other one could get from the other person. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It was just... every once in a while you meet somebody, but it was too focused on getting business. It was a sales event rather than a building your network event. And I think that's the distinction I want to make between networking, which has turned into a word meaning schmoozing, meaning the cocktail party person, the person who, quote, knows everybody, but people think of as kind of a salesperson, and building your network, which is creating connections with people, treating people well, and over time, staying in touch with people so that when you need them, you have enough of a relationship with them that you can ask them for stuff after having already done stuff for them first.
Okay. So this show is about building and maintaining your network versus networking. So I'll make sure I get the show title when I put this up correct. Because I think right now
Good.
I have it something about networking. So
Okay,
wrong.
good.
Excellent. And we'll probably need to come back to this a number of times over the course of the next few years.
Yes. Oh, gosh, I would say, when I think about the network that I have, that other people talked about, I remember when I first started consulting, my would-be business partner says, man, you have a Rolodex that's like gold. I didn't even think about it. I just felt like I knew a lot of people because I was good at staying in touch with them. But yeah, I would suspect easily 10 shows in the next 5 years. So Mike, there are 3 basic techniques or rules that we're going to suggest that people use for building and maintaining their network. And those 3 rules, they really are techniques, but I want to make them rules because I want to elevate them to the point of if you do these things, you're really going to be effective and they're powerful. The 3 rules are build volume indiscriminately. The rule number 2 is give, not take. And rule number 3 is stay in touch. And all 3 are very simple to do. But before we do that, let's get some basics out there, some things, just some background so that people know what it is we're talking about when we talk about building and maintaining a network. These are things that you can't really do, but that's important to know. And as with all Manager Tools Cast, we'll get to the stuff that you can do here shortly. The first basic is a cheesy one, but it's called The Ant and the Grasshopper. And basically, I'm sure everybody remembers it. It's Aesop's fable of the ant and the grasshopper. It has a very important lesson for people's networks. And I get calls all the time for people who behave like grasshoppers and expect charity from the ant. In the fable, the ant was industrious and worked hard all spring and summer, built his house, laid in stores for the winter. The grasshopper whiled away the hours and fiddled and generally had fun the way grasshoppers do, I guess, and was terribly ineffective at preparing for the coming winter. And when winter came, the ant was fine, and the grasshopper, basically in the fable, was destined to die a miserably cold and certain death because he didn't do what he needed to do when there was an opportunity to build in stores for the winter. And the lesson about that is that your network is like that, and it's a bit like saving for retirement. You do it now, you build it now to use it later. And most people are terrible at preparing for their retirement, at least according to the statistics in terms of our saving rates and so on. And I would say that many, many people that I talk to, probably 90%, are grasshoppers when it comes to building their network. But when you get laid off, when you miss that sure thing promotion and think, I need to go somewhere else, the writing's on the wall. When your spouse decides that he or she needs to be closer to grandparents or to move back to where they're from, either you're going to be the ant or you're going to be the grasshopper. And like I said, 90% of the people I talk to are grasshoppers. And you can either pay a little bit at a time now, or you can be in a great deal of pain later.
Okay, so we're going to look for people with the grasshopper genes.
Yeah. Next, the modern corporate structure, Mike, really demands that people build their networks. Not that they go around networking, but that they build their networks. I'll never forget working in a huge, major corporation that has a huge office building spread out over numerous acres in little modules all spread out, and they're all connected. You never have to leave the building once you come in the morning. And I would be at one end of the building, and somebody would say, "Hey, listen, I need to work with somebody over in that part of the company. Do you know anybody over in Building A?" And I'd say, "Yeah, sure. Well, what's going on?" And their response would be, "Well, I don't know anybody over there." I thought, God, this guy's been here 10 years. I've been here 6 months, and he's expecting me, an outsider, to introduce him to somebody in his own company. And he could literally walk over there. I said, "No, I'm not going to do it. I just want you to walk over there." He says, "Well, who would I talk to?" I said, "Just talk to the first person around and tell them what you need, and they'll point you in the right direction." And he was just stunned that I would suggest that. And he said, "Well, I really don't have time." So I picked up the phone and called somebody over there and said, "Hey, listen, I need to talk to somebody who knows something about this." "Oh, that would be this person." And even though I didn't know that person, we had one manager talking to another within about 5 or 10 minutes. And basically 30 years ago, Mike, internal corporate power basically came from people's roles. The role was very hierarchical. It was a very vertical situation. There was very much command and control. And that role was sufficient to get most things done. The hierarchy 30 years ago existed to apportion real organizational power. But now organizations have gotten so much flatter, and a great deal of the role power that comes from a job is gone. Now, structure today exists to apportion responsibility, not power. The power in organizations rests with the individuals and not with the roles they're in. So pretty much the manager or executive today without the right people in her network is without power. So the new flat structures put even more emphasis on your network. If you don't have one, you're going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, that rings very true in my experience. And nothing gets done except through the network to some large degree these days.
The informal corridors of power. There's all kinds of phrases that academicians use, but basically it's who you know and what do they know and what are they willing to do for you. And I would be willing to bet that what they're willing to do for you is directly related to how much you've done for them and how recently you've done it. It sounds terribly mundane, but that's probably what it boils down to. Also, good networks are very diversified. I want to share a couple of principles in just a moment, but for now, we just have to recognize there's a natural tendency over time to be adding more of the same type of people to your network. This will make your network bigger, and unfortunately, to some degree, therefore less easy to manage, but it won't necessarily make it more valuable. Diversity in roles and culture and background and industry and skills and locations and hobbies will always become more powerful in the long run. God, I wish, Mike, we could make this mandatory for all of the 25, 23, 27-year-old listeners we have. Think about where we would be if we really had stayed in touch with everybody we knew starting at graduation.
Oh, I share with my 19-year-old son all the time the fact that I really, early on in my career, did not get this. I didn't understand what building your network was. I wish I'd been better at that, to be quite honest.
And I wish I'd been better, even though I have a good network. I just think of all the opportunities I missed. Silly.
Yeah, you can't predict ahead of time who or what you're going to need sometime in the future.
Right.
And one of the most powerful hedges against that is, developing a network of resources that you can call upon. But again, you can't predict who it is or what you're going to need. So you better make it diverse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So related to that are two principles that are important to keep in mind. One is called the proximity principle. It makes it easier to start your network, but it's harder to win in the long run. And basically, the proximity principle says that you tend to add people to your network that are closest to you, those people who you see most frequently: work, church, home, soccer leagues, charities, and so on. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's good to think of formalizing those relationships in terms of making them part of the network that you have to get started. But if you stay too close to home in the long run, when a big layoff hits or you have to move or you get divorced, your network is in a shambles right at the time that you need it. So again, that goes back to the proximity principle tends to make us less likely to engage in the effort at diversifying. And so we need to keep in mind that tendency.
Yeah, but if you have that really close at hand network that you just talked about, it's great because at the layoff you can all get together and talk about your mutual pain.
Yeah, great. Yeah, you have an immediate support group.
Do you know anybody who can get us a job? Oh, no, I don't. Do you?
No. We're just going to talk about how it feels to not have a job. Oh, man, that's cold. It's good, but it's cold. And then by the same token, there's another principle called the similarity principle, which just basically says, this is the opposite of diversification. You're going to be naturally drawn to those people who are similar to you in experience and background and training. And again, it's okay to add those people you click with, you want them. But the gems you want in your network are the ones who are distinct from you in many ways. Okay? Now, there are a number of ways to categorize networks, and I'm not even suggesting people need to do this. But here is a suggestion, a way to think about the robustness or the strength of one's network. There's 100 different ways to break it down. I've got thousands of people in my network, and I've always thought that it'd be great if every once in a while I would actually take time and categorize them and see where I'm strong and where I'm weak. And yet I've never gotten around to it. I think it's just because I'd rather talk to people rather than sit down and analyze an administrative list. But basically, when I think about networks for clients of mine, for our firm, what I think is your network should be robust around your present employer. In other words, you should have both internal to your employer members of your network, and you should have external to your employer network members. So one of the ways I break down the professional part of my network is internal and external. Most people, Mike, make the mistake of thinking networks are only external, but that's not true. We just talked about the whole flattening in corporate structure, and you alluded to your experience as an executive. You definitely want to have an internal network. You should know who in the organization you can go to and for what. And you want a similar network, obviously, this is the one that most people are aware of, externally. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
I tend to think of the internal one as the network that helps me be more effective in my job, and the other one being a network of opportunity and risk management. It's not always true. I mean, if you're in sales, then an external network is very valuable, but for me at least, the internal was about effectiveness and the external was risk and opportunity management.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do have one example that makes it, in my particular case, is sort of a funny example, but a little bit